So for Group 2 revenue collection, we have identified the following non-customers. So the unexplored customers, these are the ones who have never bought anything or interacted with the revenue collection system of the municipality. We have identified tenants who are like, for instance, your backroom tenants who just pay rent to the landlord and they don't worry about how the landlord pays the bills. Residents who are in informal settlements because they don't have your water connections and the electricity there is yoga or illegal connection of electricity. And also we have an unexplored customer, which we identify like someone who assists the family to pay the bills. For instance, let's say I have a mother who lives in Hammanskraal or Mabopane, and I want to help them pay or settle their municipality bills. So there's no connection between me and the municipality to interact with their revenue collection as a family assistant. We also have the anti-customer. So these ones, they don't buy because they are opposed to the proposed offerings currently of the municipality. We have fraudsters who have breached their electricity consumption as well as their water consumptions. So they have these accounts with the municipalities, but they are not connected to these accounts, or they are not active on these accounts. They access these municipality offerings for free. We have illegal occupants of buildings or hijacked buildings who don't pay. Entitled residents who feel that electricity and water is their basic rights, since we live in a democracy and these things were promised to them by the liberation movement, that they will receive free basic needs such as electricity and water. So they are entitled to receiving them for free, so they don't have an interaction with the revenue collection system of the city. Environmental activists who don't use electricity or who don't use the water that is connected by the electricity because they feel like electricity generation is polluting the air or is not good for the environment, as well as that they don't feel that the water that is connected by the municipality is safe to use, so they prefer digging their own boreholes and means of getting water. So we also have the to-be customers. So these ones are the ones who buy occasionally or less and less and have issues related to the performance of the current offerings of the revenue collection of the city. These ones we have identified as low-income households. So these are people from indigent families who are unable to, or who don't afford to pay municipality rates. And these are, we have also identified informal businesses. So these are people who are selling, let's say, food on the street or car washes on the streets, so they don't have electricity connection. They use your generators or your gas. We also have identified unsatisfied customers who are not happy with the offerings of the city, so they buy occasionally or use alternatives as well. So yes, those are our non-customer identification for our industry, which is revenue collection.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Audrey. Maybe Other groups, other participants, you have some reactions, questions, or maybe some ideas of non-customers for you want to submit to the group too?
Hi. I just have a question on the tenants part for unexplored. Do you mind just talking about that? Which tenants are you referring to? Thank you.
When we say tenants, we mean usually people that get to live at the back rooms, how they call it. You know, sometimes you get a household that also has rooms to rent at the back. So what happened is that in most cases the tenants just pay rent and they don't care about the electricity contribution and whatnot. So when we talking about tenants, we refer to those one that live at rented household.
Okay, thank you, 100%.
And I see there's also a question about fraudsters. So fraudsters are basically people that do commit crime, right? So they ante paying, you know, for electricity. So that means that they'll check for security leaks and find a way to avoid paying electricity. And sometimes it's with anything else just to avoid paying electricity. So they don't abide by the law and they will use crime not to pay electricity. I don't know if anyone from my group members want to add on.
Yes, so fraudsters, we mean these people who are getting the electricity, but they are not paying for it. So they have breached they bargaining their connections. So like it's not reflecting on the municipality's billing system that they are using the electricity. So it shows as inactive, where else they have breached the connection.
Just to make an example, in Johannesburg and in Alexandra, usually what they do, there's so many shacks, right? So they take maybe electricity from a pole somewhere and they connect it with their households. And you'd find in most cases, it always affects the electricity where they have power outrage. And it's not due to load shedding, but because of the weight of the electricity that is consumed by the population, because then it was not done lawfully.
On the
So in
chat, we
most
have
cases,
Kenny Seal saying, "What about those who sell illegal electricity who are actually ESCOM employees?"
So yeah, those ones also fall under fraudsters because they are committing fraud.
and in most cases what they do is maybe for 100 rand you get more points, you know, in terms of the prepaid electricity, so you can get above more units than they're required, you know, if you'd be paying normally at City of Tshwane. So they also commit fraud because then they have some sort of incentive they get for doing that.
We have also Promise want to has raised his hand or her hand.
Sorry, no,
Yeah,
I
sorry,
don't have a
hand.
question.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, or reaction, maybe some complement to this list of non-customers you want to propose?
I think it's a very thorough evaluation of the three circles.
Yeah, it's very good. I agree. Thank you to the group too. And I propose to switch to another group. I think it's very complete. Group 2, you will be ready for the next workshop with a lot of insight. It's good. So which group want to hand over now?
Group 4.
Group 4, waste management.
Ewan, can you please put on the thing? Thank you. Okay, with our non-customers, we identify the unexplored as the children. Okay, and then the informal settlements, usually in the informal settlements, people don't have they don't have the facility of the municipality providing them with waste collection, and then the homeless, and then remote villages. And at the NT customers, we have your illegal dumpers and disregarded nature, and the unserved communities, industries that pollute involuntarily, such as ESCOM, when they, they make, when they burn fossil fuels for electricity. And also our to-be customers will be the frustrated citizens with the current offerings, and nature conservatives, and the zero waste activists. Yeah, that will be all. Hello. Hello.
Yes, some reactions about this list of non-customers. Maybe you need some clarifications, or you think about complements. Want to react? Did you have some ideas? I think it's good to share your opinions because it will give to the group new to complete. It will help them to complete their non-customer list.
Okay, I would like to ask that why is it that the unserved communities, are they anti or are they unexplored?
Who?
The unserved communities.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think to a degree they would be unexplored because of, for example, in the informal settlements, those services are not provided, and also in the remote villages. But we were sort of trying to define illegal dumpers and why they are against the idea of using municipal waste removal or private waste removal. And so one of the reasons that we found was, okay, because they're not served, it could be out of resentment, or it could be simply because they aren't served, and then they would fall under the unexplored group.
Also, I would like to add on the unserved is that because they fall under the NT because they wouldn't want to pay for the service. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, non-customers, clearly there are people who don't pay or don't want to pay or find another solution, an alternative. We have a question from M4 about the children. If you can give more details about why the children are unexplored.
Sure. Can I take that one? So this has been a debate in our group as well, because we were trying to figure out how they fit into that category. And I think given the definition that is mentioned with the unexplored, it's people that competitors have never had interest or motivation to buy into the thing. So our abstract scenario is private municipal waste collection, as well as personal and waste pickers, right? So with that in mind, we noted that kids are producers of waste on one level or another, and they are unexplored as yet because primarily they do not have a source of income, but they do produce waste. And as waste producers, we thought it is the responsibility of their parents to teach them about good waste management practices, such that when they do get to a point where they are ready and fit to fall into the market, they're already pre-prepared as like an unexplored customer in a way. So it's very futuristic, but I think it's still open to discussion to think about it a bit more objectively. But we were looking at it from an overarching perspective. And yeah, Kanye has just responded now on chat. But basically, it was a very overarching, holistic view of it, that if you are a producer of waste, are you then responsible for how your waste gets discarded, or the management of your waste holistically? And if so, like, children are producers of waste. And so, yeah, I hope that makes sense.
very, very interesting. Thank you, Pinky. Very clear. Do we have other questions for group 4? It's okay. So thank you a lot to group 4 for your presentation. Very synthetic and clear and complete. So let's switch to one of the two last groups. Group 1.
Group 3.
Group 3, okay. James.
Okay. Yeah. So we've tried to identify our non-customers, and firstly, the unexplored customers, the homeless population, and those that are in the informal settlements, of which they do not have access to electricity, and those that do not afford to buy electricity, because we think that it will be actually it won't be useful to go to a person who does not afford to buy electricity, whilst you know very well that they cannot be able to pay for the electricity. So the installation of electrical devices will be a waste to the municipality. And our anti-customers are the retail stores, the industrial sectors, agricultural sectors, and the natural gas users. Yeah, but more, okay, I think just to make a correction on that section, to be specific, the renewable energy sector and the natural gas users are our anti-customers, because they are actually producing their own energy and they are not buying from the municipality. And the customers to be those that are in the rural communities, the ones that currently do not have electricity. There is a chance that they may have access to electricity, but because of slow service delivery, then it might be possible that that's the reason that they do not have electricity. So those are our customers to be. And if I may add to the water section, our anti-customers are those who have their own purification systems, and those that also to have boreholes and that are not using the water that is supplied by the municipality. Yeah, I think if there is anyone from our group who wants to add, can add on that.
Yeah, maybe there are some questions. Joben has a question.
I like it. It's very thorough. I would just like to ask two things. With the unexplored group, the informal settlements, they do provide energy, or there is electricity provided to the informal settlements, even though it's by illegal connection. So maybe if you could provide a bit more clarity as to with regards to that. And then also with the 2B group, I think something good to add would be the group or the growing population of, would you say, nature conservationists, people who aren't yet concerned about their environment, but who are growing in awareness of the environment. I think soon they will want to leave the energy system. I see you did add the renewable energy sector in the anti-group, but yeah, there are some people that are still to join. Thank you.
Other question for the group 3? Do we have other reaction or complement like Joben has provided? I think it's interesting. No other reaction for group 3? Questions? Okay. Okay, so let's finish with the group number 1 before we go to lunch. Thank you a lot, group number 3. Very clear. I think for your non-customers, it's clearly something about this new home production at home of your own energy, and people who want only green energy. So they are like Joban says, they are going out of the system. Okay, thank you for sharing. We can switch to group number 1, transport. There are less content. Maybe you need some support from all the participants to complete your non-customer profiles.
Tabiso?
So we had really high difficulties, if I can explain it, that in completing this task. So starting with the unexplored market, the transport industry, we looked at the physically disabled individuals, looking at the transport system which is available in the country as a whole. We didn't. We found that the current transport system is not accessible for those who present with physical disabilities. Then the next type of unexplored type of non-consumer we had were tourists. Not a lot of tourists make use of the public transport systems which are in South Africa. Also, then there was an example with people with chronic illnesses, where someone then further substantiated in saying that the reason that they opted for buying their own private car was because people in public transport put all kinds of perfumes which aren't conducive to their environment, since they had a lot of allergies. And then we also spoke about, I see the point of homeless people. Our public transport system is not free, and we also need to be cognizant that homeless people also do need to have their own forms of transportation. Moving on to the anti segment. So this was a very interesting point which came up, where during lockdown, the restaurant owners could not continue to operate because they had no modes of transporting their product offerings. So we then asked ourselves, could we not use an already existing mode of transport, which is taxis, to then, or any form of public transport, to transport their product offerings to the final end consumer? And that was the anti segment that we had there. And of course, it posed a lot of risks, as in there's unreliability and all of that in that segment. And lastly,
sorry for interrupt. I think about the anti, you have all the people who want to breathe, who are against pollution from transport, from cars, from bus, from taxis, people who are struggling with traffic jam. All these people are anti-transport. You see?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think then we had a definitional problem there with the anti. But I think we hadn't had quite sufficient time to explore the anti. So now that you're probably saying, you're mentioning it now, then I think you'd get your I would call it a health freak, where they would very much opt for using their own bicycles to go to work rather than the public transport.
And Joban say chronic illness people fits anti quite well. I agree.
Oh, really? Okay, that's quite interesting. And And then to B, sorry, I can't, can you please zoom in, Penang? I can't see that, the font there. I see children and elderly people. Okay, so with that, holding all else equals with the unexplored market, we also found that the elderly people also fit into the to-be market, because I don't think a lot of transport or modes of transport cater for the elderly people, because of they possess sometimes a lot of illnesses, and because they sometimes possess a lot of physical challenges as well. So this is a market that we can really try and they use transport occasionally, but more often they rely on family and friends to transport them to specific places, which also goes in hand with young children or unaccompanied minors. You would not find them in public transport all alone. So I think, yeah, we did really struggle with this exercise because of the various offerings the transport industry has. But I think we tried to push it into the overarching category where the majority would apply. So please do feel free to,
Audrey,
offer,
Audrey said you can move tourists also to the to be, because they use very occasionally the public transportation. I quite agree with that. And as we said with your group, Xabizo, all the group number one, in fact, it's all people who have their own, who have buy a car, who have their own bicycle, or using their own bicycle, using their own transport mode, they are non-customers of the transport service industry, because they are customers of another industry. It's manufacturing cars, manufacturing bicycles, or I don't know, skateboards. And it's another industry to your industry. Your industry, it's transport services. So you have, in fact, a lot of alternative industries, very clear, and you have a lot of non-customers because of that. We have also Jeffrey and MFO on the chat. MFO, she said, farm employees, communities could be the unexplored customer due to being far from cities. Yeah, of course. All people who are far from the networks, transportation networks, they are unexplored non-customers, clearly. And you can add them. I think, you can add tourists on the to be. No, not. I think it's unexplored. People living far from the network. They cannot access the transportation network, so they are unexplored. We said we have Jeffrey saying there is over 300,000 taxi drivers in SA, taking into the account the hostilities they had at the beginning with accommodating Uber services. I think we can say for sure that the public taxi operators will be anti-Uber. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could say maybe there are some population against very clearly one of the services proposed on the market. Cadisil, you say I'm a bit confused about the pollution part. Don't we use public transport to limit pollution rather? Yeah, but current public transportation is not yet all without pollution. They generate also pollution. And when you take a bus, when you are working in the city waiting for the bus, and you have some allergies or things like that and sensitive to pollution, you can be hurt, or you can, if you're against fuel, if you're against the fuel or against the oil energy, you can be against some transport. Urban say perhaps it would be better, say, self-transported to suggest car, foot, and bicycle user. Yeah, clearly, or maybe owners of their transport mode as unexplored. Clearly, they are unexplored. All people owning their cars, their bicycles, or maybe people who prefer to walk, because you can be also an explored or anti, people who don't want to be moved because they prefer to do sport. So they don't take a bus because they prefer to walk by themselves, to be in good shape, in good health. They're also anti. Other reactions, other questions? So we give you some compliments to the group one. Hope you enjoy.
Alban,
Yes.
I just have a question. I don't know if it will be relevant, but then, there's something that once happened early, I think last year. The father of this other friend of mine bought a car, is 56 years old. And apparently he drove the car to town, and then when he got back, he came without the car. And when the kids asked him, why did you come back without the car? And he said he forgot the car in town. He forgot that he bought a car. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I know this case. Yeah, of course. And the
Yeah,
car
so-
is going back to its wildlife, staying on the parking.
Yeah. So I'm just struggling to understand, where would we put such kind of people?
Yeah, but there are people. But at the beginning, he was a client. He was a customer of an alternative industry, the car manufacturing, but he came back to the transportation services, to the industry of the transport services. Is like a 2B, if you want. It can be considered as a 2B. He was owning a car, but he didn't use it. Finally, maybe he preferred to work, or he preferred. So people who prefer to work, they're clearly unexplored by the transportation service. We have also maybe Joben. It's okay. You raise your hand.
Yes. So one thing with the to be group, I think maybe one other, we did mention it when we were looking at your presentation this morning, and we were looking at people who have maybe been mugged, and because of safety being reduced, a lot of people prefer to opt out of public transport. And so I think it would be maybe good to put in people who experience crime within the public transport system as a to be non-customer, because they would rather opt for private transport or and so forth. And then I would also like to maybe just implore and say, very well done. And I'm glad you introduced or mentioned the physically disabled individuals, because I know in the hospitals, we have a lot of problems with disabled people not being able to come to the hospital because of public transport not being available and private transport being too expensive for them. And so it's very important that they get given a way to get to the hospital from their residential area and back. So if there are any solutions for that, it's very good. It would be something to explore, which hasn't been explored as yet. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joben. I think from your words, we can add maybe in the unexplored again, people who need special transportation, who have special needs, and like they need to be transported with health support, and normal usual transport does not propose such a support, health support. Like you said, they need to be transported from their home to the hospital. Only if you call the doctor or things like that, he will maybe have a car for you, but it's very specific. So I think they can be considered this hurt people, this with some disease, they need special transportation. So they can be to be or unexplored. We have Namulo raised his hand.
Hi.
Hi.
So I had
two questions. So on unexplored, you say disabled people are unexplored. I just would like to find out more on that, because from my perspective is that you guys are looking at it from the perspective of the city's buses. And as far as I know is that the city's buses do take into account people with disabilities and
Okay.
those who use wheelchairs and stuff.
I didn't know that.
And
Okay.
then second question is on the children as to be's. I just wanted to know how they can fit into the mix, because usually where I'm from anyway, or a lot of children who travel from townships into towns for school usually use I don't know what you'd call it, but it's private transport. I guess you can call it. So I just wanted to know how that fits into the mix for the children. Thank you.
Maybe the group can answer maybe about the children.
Okay, no one wants to take the question. So to go to the first question of disabled people again, I'd like to reiterate that when we were doing the exercise, it was more of a majority of the modes of transport don't cater, or the majority it fits into the specific description. So yes, we're cognizant that some city buses do have access for the physically disabled people, but not all modes of transport give us this accessibility for the physically disabled. Then the children, let me try to remember what the question was for children. So with children, you're saying they have private transport. By private transport, you mean, I know where sometimes parents hire a specific taxi that's going to fetch the children from school and so forth. I can't directly answer your question. I don't have an answer to your question, but again, we're applying the generic. We're generalizing here, and we're saying that majority of the case, majority of the time, you'd find that children is not a safe space for them to use public transport unaccompanied. Even so, with those private transports, transport modes, you'll find that there are a lot of stories which do come out where you hear that this certain incident happened and the person responsible was this person who was hired to transport this child or this minor. I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, Namulo, does it answer your question? Namulo,
he replied in the chat.
Yes, it's answered.
Sorry.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome. Yeah, about children and also physically disabled people or people who need special treatment, medical treatment. You know, the ambulance industry, it's another industry to compare to the transportation industry. It's an alternative industry, and you have all these people who can move only by ambulance. They need a special support during the transportation. They are unexplored non-customers for your industry because they can move only by ambulance so ambulance transportation is an alternative industry, and it has to inspire you. These alternative industries, we consider them as one of the 6 paths because they will inspire you, give you some elements of value to add to your offerings to make it really different, really creating a new offering, new market compared to the standard offering you have on the market. We have Joben in the chat. Please also don't forget the individuals who experience danger with using public transport. Yeah, of course. Yeah, people afraid of taking the bus, the train. They are clearly non-customers. Joben say, we know it will be put the user off, but I think it's good to have written down for the sake of remembering. Yeah, I agree. It's very, we forgot maybe about it because it's very in evidence, but Audrey, not sure if we have explored the lift clubs as well. Lift clubs, Don't know what it is. It's what is Leafs Club? Sorry, Audrey, if you can precise what is Leafs Club.
It's similar to carpooling.
To what? Sorry.
Carpooling. So when people who work in
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. But carpool, you know, carpool, car sharing. It's clearly a start of blue ocean in this industry. It's clear. It's a blue ocean offerings in this industry because they have changed clearly some elements. They have created some elements. We have also, as maybe unexplored non-customers, the taxi drivers themselves. If they own their car, if they move only with their own taxi, they are non-customers too. They don't take the bus, they don't take any service. They don't pay for their own service in their taxi because this is their taxi. We have Jeffrey. So maybe if you can add, I think this taxi driver owning their cars, they are clearly unexplored in my opinion. We have Jeffrey saying in the chat, city buses are one of the 4 bus companies which make provision for people with disabilities. Those are buses. Okay, maybe Jeffrey, you want to share this by audio with us? Jeffrey?
I was just saying that our point was just based on an average. We said that they are looking overall on how things are working because we're having 4 bus companies at City of Tshwane and also Arieng who have made provision for people with special needs. But then they are not having as much users as the other 2 companies who are operating in and outside of the cities like Padco and BT. So just so before somebody grills us for saying no, but then you thought of it in one direction.
And can I iterate on Jeffrey's point? So if you look at the transporting system and referring to city bus or something like that, mostly they're in town, right? And the mass users for the transport system are in townships. This is where most of the people are coming from, and the services are not there for them.
It's okay. It answers your question. We have also in the chat Namulo talking about animal transport. Clearly, animals are unexplored. They are unexplored non-customers. Clearly, you can add them. And taxi drivers also, I think, when they are independent. And I think it's okay. We have now a good list for the group 1. So I propose now to have the lunch break until 3 p.m. Is it okay for you? We join all here at 3 p.m. on the same Zoom. The Zoom will stay open. You can stay connected if it's more comfortable for you.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, so see us at 3 p.m. in 1 hour 30 about. Have a good lunch. See you.